It is 9:30. The bell is about to ring, and we're going to get down to business. At the G7 summit, CEOs from top AI companies like OpenAI and Anthropic were all on hand. During a closed-door meeting with world leaders that included our president, they called for a U.S.-led coalition to create rules around the technology. Yeah, no duh, because we don't have rules here. Joining me now, Max Chapkin, Bloomberg Businessweek journalist and host of Bloomberg Everybody's Business podcast, where they never say no duh. And Gillian Tett, a columnist and member of the Financial Times editorial board and dear friend of mine, Max. Sure, of course, these AI companies are like, we think the United States should lead it. Yeah, of course you do.
Yeah, well, we've had this interesting thing happen where you had all of these AI companies kind of get behind the Trump administration, get behind Donald Trump. At the same time, Trump...
Do you know why that is?
Of course.
Because he does what they want him to do.
Yes, although that is shifting just a little bit with blowback. I think there's some blowback against data centers. There's blowback against some public blowback.
No. There's absolutely a huge amount of public blowback. There are lawmakers on both sides of the aisle saying this isn't going to work. And what does the president do? Signs an executive order that says, we're going to set these rules, but only you have to govern yourself.
Right. And he's sort of using this as an opportunity to go after the one AI company that didn't, sort of fall in line, that didn't sort of bend the knee at the beginning of the Trump administration, Anthropic.
And let's stay there because the administration, let's get specific, ordered Anthropic not to allow foreign nationals to have access to their latest, most advanced AI. And in this case, they're citing national security concerns. What do you think is going on here, Gillian?
Well, essentially, when it comes to Anthropic, the administration is acting like the biggest bully in the playground, where it feels it needs to, regularly clobber a small kid to prove that it's still in charge. I remember back when it was starting on the tariff war with Canada, one of the administration officials told me that they were going after Canada for sport just to show who's in charge. And I think they're doing the same thing with Anthropic right now, with clobbering them over the recent Anthropic release. But what is really striking is that I trained as a cultural anthropologist before I became a journalist, so I care a lot about rituals and symbols. In the inauguration, the big tech CEOs were sitting not just with Trump, but with his family, underscoring that he wanted them to be part of his tribe. At the G7, they're there partly because governments are recognizing belatedly that tech CEOs are not as powerful as them, if not more powerful in some senses. And things like the release of Mythos are making many of them very scared.
When it comes to how powerful these companies are, a number of them are about to go public, just like SpaceX obviously just did, and make people an unimaginable amount of money. There's some senior Trump officials are now saying they're exploring how the government might take a stake in some of the biggest AI companies. Help us understand this. Is the government basically just saying, you guys are about to be worth $1 gazillion. We're giving you a clear path with little to no regulation. We want in on some of this good stuff?
I think there's some of that. I think there are multiple factions within the Trump administration. There's part of the Trump administration that just wants to take a piece of the action.
Yeah,
and I think
especially because this action's so sweet.
And I think when you look at the sort of threats against Anthropic, the sudden, cutting off of one of its products, that is a potential point of leverage that the Trump administration could use to take a stake in Anthropic. And because you sort of wonder, what are they going to give in return if they're going to take a piece of these very valuable AI companies? Are they going to invest money? Is there going to be a U.S. sovereign wealth fund? There's going to be something. I also think you're seeing arguments from Democrats, including Bernie Sanders, that the U.S. government should take a piece of these companies. You're also, sorry.
Oh, but the U.S. government should take a piece of these companies, and then that money should make its way to the U.S. taxpayer. This is like you're suddenly seeing that the Steve Bannon and Bernie Sanders of the world aligned, where they're saying, sure, take a stake, but we don't want it to sit in a sovereign wealth fund that the government, that the powerful people get to decide where it goes. If these companies are so critically important and the government takes a stake, they're arguing, well, let the American people have a piece.
Yeah, that's the argument. I do wonder, we are in a very frothy moment. These companies are having a super easy time raising money. It's all gravy. It's all upside. SpaceX is going to be one of the most valuable companies in the world, if not the most valuable company in the world because of these AI dreams. If that all falls apart and the U.S. government is now sort of party to these deals, one way or another, whether via an investment, whether via a seizure, whatever it is, are we then going to be on the hook, we being the U.S. government, to bail these companies out? Because these are very expensive, models. The infrastructure is very expensive. This is becoming extremely important to the U.S. economy. There are going to be arguments, if there is a bubble burst, for some form of a bailout or backstop.
It's so funny that you say that. Just yesterday, I was looking at a flailing sneaker company that said, we're not a sneaker company anymore. We're now an AI company. And I said, can we go back into a 1998 time machine and it's not AI? We don't sell sneakers. We're a .com. Okay, Jillian, new topic. I definitely want to talk about this with you. Kevin Warsh. Yesterday, we saw his first meeting as the Fed chair. What was your takeaway? Because the market didn't love it.
Yeah, I think what's very interesting is that Kevin Warsh, judging by what I've known of him over many years, is something of a natural hawk. And yet he's working for a president who wants to be a mega dove. And that was always going to create big problems for him. And of course, until quite recently, the pressure was on Chairman Warsh to basically try and cut rates as far as the White House was concerned. However, in some ways, what you've had is almost a perfect constellation of factors for him, in that it now looks very hard, if you look at the macroeconomic data, for him to rush to cut rates. And so the fact he simply held rates steady is viewed by some people in the White House as, yes, disappointing, but actually it's a victory because he hasn't raised rates yet. And the fact that, he hasn't cut them, to many people in the market, is actually quite reassuring. But he's got a hellishly difficult tightrope to walk in the coming months, because you can sit there and argue endlessly about whether you think the oil price shock is going to subside and the inflationary numbers we had last month were just transitory or not. You can also sit there and argue about whether you think AI is actually going to deliver a productivity miracle or not, as people like Warsh keep claiming. But the honest answer is that right now, we just don't know. So he's like a pilot flying a plane when the altimeter and all the radar is only working half the time.
He has a hellish time and a complicated road ahead, but the president is not going to see it that way, right? The president is going to look at the market this morning, right? That's up. I just looked at it, up over 300 in the last 6 minutes, and gas prices fell below $4 a gallon for the first time since the war began. So from the president's perspective, he's going to say things are easy, like things are only going my way.
Well, and that's going to make things easy for Warsh for now, as Jillian is saying. And I think one thing that has sort of taken the pressure off is that the U.S. economic numbers have been better over the last couple of months.
Spending's up.
Employment has held solid. And so as long as that is the case, I think it isn't as hard for Warsh, because there isn't going to be this really strong pressure from the Trump administration to lower rates to give the economy a boost, because the economy is doing okay. But if we have a series of problems, if the AI, bubble bursts, if gas prices bite, there are a bunch of ways in which this could become much more sticky for him.
It's not easy. Max, great to have you here on your first visit to Money, Power, Politics. Jillian, great to see you.